Hello, my name is Amber. Welcome to my creative space. Today we'll be talking about my next Tunisian crochet project, which is going to be the Tunisian Brioche Cowl. I think they also called it the breathtaking brioche cowl or something like that. The tutorial I found was on the Crochet crowd, and the pattern I think was put out by Yarnspirations, and they recommend using red heart yarn. I'm using the yarn for my stash, so I just grabbed two colors. I actually grabbed this yarn to begin with, and there's a reason it's in my stash because it's so hard to work with. Once you start putting it together, it's extremely hard to see where your loops are and where the structure of your stitches are. So I had to pull it out. And so I was going to do this along with a nice brown, and I had to restart it. So it's become a question of what exactly is a cowl. If you look it up, it's basically the hood on a monk's outfit. And if you look at the pattern, it's basically a circular scarf. It's a tube scarf. It's sewn together. It's not just one straight line. So this is working with a two-ended crochet hook, and you're working in the round, and the pattern is basically a spiral. So once you get started, you just keep going until you decide you're done. They suggest, I believe, making the pattern 12 inches wide. I had said, I just want to use up this white yarn I don't like. And then at that point, I'll decide if it's too long or too short or what I want to do next. And in the pattern, there's a 2-page pattern you can find, and it's fine and dandy, but it wasn't very helpful. In the tutorial I'll link below, he mentioned doing a 3rd page that has a pattern on it, a chart. And I highly suggest finding that, because the chart is this. And once you watch the tutorial and understand what it means, this is all you need. You don't even need the pages with the words on it. So you flip it to the row that you're working on, and when you're done with that, you open it up and flip it over again so you can get to the row you're working on. So it's a 2-row repeat once you do your foundation rows. There's like, I want to say there was like 2 rows of setting up, and then you start your repeats. In the paperwork in the tutorial, they're saying that you need, like, I want to say 18 different stitch markers, because they wanted you to mark every repeat on 2 rows, and I don't have that many, especially not in dedicated colors. And I have found, as long as I have 2 unique colors to start the beginning of the row, so here, this is the beginning of my rows. Purple is one of the repeats and green's the other. As long as I have those 2, in all honesty, I could do this entire pattern, because the repeat starts with a decrease, and that's the only time you have a decrease, is the beginning of your repeat. So if you run across a decrease, then you're starting over your repeat. It is nice to have your repeat marked, but I don't need 2 rows worth of it. It's nice to have 1 row. And after a while, as you can see, you know, as long as the line's marked, I'm not even moving it up anymore. So don't let their comments about needing so many matching stitch markers put you off. You can do it without. As long as you have 2 unique stitch markers, you could do it. But it is nice to have 10, so you can mark every repeat. Because in the beginning, it's a little bit confusing. Looking back on it, it's not confusing, but I've also been doing this for a little bit. I was adding an extra stitch because the stitch repeat is 12 stitches, and I was ending up with 13, because when I was increasing, I wasn't putting my next stitch in that same stitch, and so I ended up increasing it, but it was a simple enough adjustment to make. So let me show you how it looks so far. So I've officially run out of my white, and it has this nice pattern going this way and pattern going that way, and it has a bit of a ripple. I don't necessarily like the way that these are curling in. I'm up here, and you can see the white has run out, and so now I'm just working in the browns. And believe it or not, these rows I have actually been dropping stitches, trying to stop the curl and cinch the top end some, and it doesn't seem to be making a difference. So let me show you what this looks like on. Okay, so the idea of a cowl is that you would with a hood, but as you can see, there's a big old section back here that's not covered and not protected from the cold. And if I were to add that many rows back here, it'd be that much thicker under my neck. So I don't think this is an option for me. And if you were to wear it just as a tubular scarf, I think it's a bit much, a bit long. But I don't necessarily want to make it shorter because then I'd have some of that white stuff left. So the option I'm leaning towards is to stitch the ends together and make it a doubled up scarf. So let me roll this together and show you, because that way then I'm guaranteed that the pattern side will always be showing, because that's the only option, is they'll be stitched together. It would fix the curling issue, and it also fixed the height issue. So here's it doubled over. I think that's more reasonable in height. And you can see the pattern some. Only issue is when I was talking to Wes, I was doing this and I was curling this up some to make it higher in the back to protect your ears. And if I sew the ends together, you won't be able to do that. But I really think overall I would probably like it best if it was stitched together. So what I need to do now is finish this row. It's all twisted up. So I'm going to finish this row, and then I will stitch the edges together and bring you back to show you what it looks like. But I kind of wish before I had gotten really far into it, I had tried it on and realized, oh, this is kind of loose on me, I want it to be tighter. I wish there was a way to cinch in the edges, but like I said, I'm dropping stitches in these rows and it's not really changing the shape enough to make a difference. So this is going to be my workaround. So I'll bring you back when I'm at that point. Okay, so I finished my row, and then it took a minute of thought to figure out, with a two-sided hook, how do you finish? And you basically go around and you close off all of the hooks, all of the hoop loops on your hook. You close off the back side of it completely and then pull your yarn through, and then continue forward with your forward yarn. And I just went around the whole thing in a slip stitch, because with Tunisian crochet, that last row always has that big gap on the top you need to fill in. So I slip stitched to finish it. And right now I'm taking out all my markers, and before I stitch this thing closed, I'm going to spend some time and weave in all my ends so that they're all on the inside rather than the outside, so that when we gets done. But it's interesting, doing the slip stitch made this curl even more in the wrong direction. And this joining does not look wonderful, but it'll all be hidden and put together when I sew it together. So I'm going to take the moment and weave in my ends. So later that day, it was very hot, and instead of sitting in my car working on the project, I went ahead and went into the library. And this has no sound because there's a very weird humming sound on this video. But here is a clip of me joining, and I decided to use the Mattress stitch joining method. I'll link a tutorial below, and I think it turned out really good. It was pretty straightforward. A little bit fiddly, as you can see, with how long my yarn was to go around everything, because in the tutorial they had said use a yarn that was three times the length of your actual stitch that you're going to try to close. One thing I would say was, with working with this, don't wait too long before tightening down your join to how tight you want it to be, because the longer it is, then the harder it is to work that closed. You just work it closed by pulling on the either end of your yarn to pull it closed. But at the end of the day, it was a invisible seam, which I really enjoyed. So as you saw in the last clip, I was out and about and took some time to work on the cowl, and it is officially finished. So it has this brown stripe where I seamed it all together. One challenge I did find, you'll see it's kind of more floofy in the middle. I had been dropping stitches for several rows trying to get the whole thing to come together and be tighter and not have the curling. And so when I went to seam it together, obviously all those drop stitches needed to be taken care of. So I ended up drawing on my experience from joining the blanket and just, what do you call it? Having more of the outer ones go to less of the inner ones, if that makes sense. So it is more gathered in the center because there was less stitches to work with. But it's finished. I think it looks very pretty. This is not the day to be wearing it. It is officially over 100 degrees. But it likes to get caught on my glasses. But I think it looks nice. It'll be good with, obviously, appropriate shirts and jackets and such. But it's enough to block the wind and keep some heat on you. And I think it's not too tall, and it displays the pattern nicely. So that was fun to do off of my Crochet to Try playlist that is just sitting there saying, these look like interesting projects. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do next. I do still have the desire to make some shawls, and those would definitely be longer projects. The nice thing was this did take more than a couple days. Don't know exactly how long. Maybe a week and a half or so. And it was just the project I took with me when I was out waiting around, or I do a couple rows or several rows at night before bed, so just here and there working on it. So that's the kind of project I'll be looking for, and I don't know if the shawl patterns I'm thinking about doing right now are really a take along and work situation. I don't know, but I do know I'm going to continue crocheting and continue exploring and continue learning, and I'd love for you to join me on the journey. So until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day, and in the meantime, feel free to like and subscribe. Bye!